Hey, Chicago. Happy Sunday. This is Chicago Speaks with Lori Elise. I'm the accidental activist trying to turn some of you all into intentional activists. We have had an interesting week in Chicago. There's never a dull moment in Chicago. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the activities that's been going on. But first, I want to let you know that we have a wonderful guest here with us today, Dr. Flavian Prince. He's from Meta 24. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that organization, but they're an organization, they're a school, they're a nonprofit, I believe, all wrapped up in one. And they really take learning to a whole different level where they're utilizing different incentives for the kids to learn to be entrepreneurs. So they're getting life skills, they're getting educated, but they're also learning about how they can provide a future for themselves. And so I'm always on the hunt for what's going on in Chicago. You hear me talking about what's good in the hood. And, you know, this is not only something that's good in the hood, it's something that's good that Chicago needs to know about. So I'm so happy to be able to speak with Dr. Prince, and he's brought one of his students here with us today, a gentleman named Cortez, who's come through the program. He's been in the program for a couple of years, and he can really speak to what's going on in the Chicago, the school here in Chicago, and how it's affected him and what his plans are as well. So I'm excited to speak to him. Lots of things going on in Chicago. I'm not sure if you're aware, but President Obama was here in Chicago. I was driving Saturday. I was on my way to a birthday party, and I ran into a lot of traffic, and I'm thinking, what is going on? I got on to Ohio relatively late, around 7 o'clock, and I just couldn't understand what was going on with traffic. Well, I did notice some helicopters, and I'm quite certain it had to do with President Obama being in town, which is a fantastic thing. I so miss former President Obama. You see how I just kind of go straight to President Obama, but they're always known as president going forward. So it's okay to still say President Obama, but he's our former president and still doing great things. I checked into my cousin, who is just in the know. He's just the guy who's in the know. His name's Anthony Stevens, always doing great things in Chicago. Really makes trips back and forth to Africa, bringing awareness to what's going on there. And I noticed a post on his Facebook page about President Obama's presidential center panel. There was a meeting of the minds that took place at DuSable Museum. And that was this past Saturday. It was held from 2 to 3 p.m. And there was the design team was there talking about what's going to be happening with the Obama Presidential Center that's coming to the South Side. And so that's not only an exciting thing that's happening here, an exciting opportunity for our community, but one of the things that he mentioned, and my cousin mentioned in his post, is that we need to be aware of what's going on. So I noticed different people posted below him making statements like, oh, I forgot that was going on. Really wish I could have been there. And so many people were saying, we're happy that you were actually there, Tony Stevens. So I see you. Thank you so much for enlightening me and so many others about what's going on in Chicago. And so I'm looking forward to hearing about what happened. I go to so many different events, but I wasn't able to make it to that one. And I'm looking forward to hearing about what's going on. We need to know what's going on in our community. How can we participate? Will we have an opportunity to be a vendor, to be a contractor? If something's coming to our community, that's fantastic. But we also want to have the opportunity to participate and actually have a say. So Tony Stevens for that. Also, as I mentioned before, former President Barack Obama made a surprise visit to Chicago also yesterday. And he was here to attend his foundation, the Obama Foundation, they had a training day here in Chicago for youth leaders. So I actually heard about this maybe a couple of weeks ago, and then tried to do some research to see who can attend. But I noticed that it was something strictly for youth leaders. And so I could have been there as a fly on the wall, but I'm so happy that there's so many different young people who have taken the time to get information about this initiative and participate. So there were 150 participants that were there, ages 18 to 24. So, again, shout out to our former president, Barack Obama, for getting our youth engaged. It's so important. Our generation, or the older generation, we're here and we're trying to lead the way, but it's really the generation that's coming up next, training them up in the way that they should go, so that we can have and they can have a valuable future going forward. So people there ages 18 to 24. And also there were 25 local peer advisors that helped facilitate the session. So I'm looking forward to trying to track down some of these young people who attended this event, and even some of the peer advisors, to find out what were the outcomes, what are we trying to accomplish. There's some initiatives that I'm going to talk about later in the show that pulling together regarding making sure that you know who's on your ballot, who you're voting for, whether it's judges or local. We want you to be in the know and know who you're putting into office, and know before you show up at the day to vote. So as I gather information, I will let you know what's going on with these two initiatives that are going on with the Barack Presidential Center and with the foundation as well. So I was just talking before the show started. I'm sure you're aware of my lead, and if you're not aware, there's a song that is by Unclassified Trio, and that is my lead into this show. It's called Growing Pains, and so we're growing together. We go through different growing pains as we deal with what's happening in the world nationally and what's happening in our world locally. But there's this song, I don't even know the words to it yet, so I can't really speak too much about the song, but it's called Stay Woke by Childish Gambino. And even though I don't know the words to this song, I like the hook, which is stay woke. We got to stay woke, Chicago. And we're going to help you to stay wide awake with Dr. Flavian Prince, who's going to speak to us regarding Meta 24. We'll be right back.
To me, I'm growing older and realizing what life is doing. I came from the dirt, I'm straight off the boat. A new style, some new chains so I can boast. A new whip to make sure I move right. Mama, I made it, I swear that your boy gon' be tight. And we might face some problems growing up where I'm from. The 216, get Roddy saying, who wants this? He from the sud, I'm from the land where the dirt and the rest of the tub.
Hey, Chicago, thanks for tuning in. You're with Lori Elise, that's me. We're on Intellectual Radio. We're also on iHeartRadio and a few other places. I want to say YouTube. Feel free to call in on Sunday mornings. You can reach us at 708-223-8953. And I'm so happy to introduce Dr. Flavian Prince from Meta 24. He's joining us here today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And also we have a young man who's come up in the program, Cortez. He's making his intellectual radio premiere. Today you'll have lots to talk about when he returns to school next week. So I'm so encouraged that you're here.
Thank you.
And you know what, I was going to go through your resume or your bio, but I'd like to hear it from you. If you could just kind of share with Chicago where you've started, how you've kind of moved up through the ranks, what got you interested in the field that you're in now, and what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure. Maybe I'll do it with a story. I originally I was studying to be a history professor. I was going to the University of Colorado. I was actually on my way to a doctoral program, and I was studying in Brazil, the study of intellectual history, and I was doing comparative race history between Brazil, Ireland, and the United States, or early colonial American history. Long story short, I was working with, going to the library doing research, and every day I would sit at this fountain, and I would play with these kids, right? And these kids looked like me. But they were in the city. This is in the city of Rio, and the people around there did not necessarily look like me. These kids were homeless. A lot of them were orphans, and it just kind of hit me. Why am I spending so much time doing research and writing a book that not too many people are going to read, and that's not going to impact these orphans and whatnot? And so I made a commitment to stop that, and I wanted to get into a field that would allow me to directly impact kids that were, sort of being ignored, like these orphans. I spent part of my life in a foster home, and I wanted to give back. And so I moved back to the States, moved actually to Champaign, where my mom was living at the time. Went to graduate school for education, began working at therapeutic day schools. And then I encountered a system in Champaign, Illinois, where I became a dean of the school, and I was getting kids 12, 13, 14 years old that were coming directly out of jail and coming to the school where I worked. And not only did that bother me and shocked me, it began to define me as an educator. I began to do some overall research, but I still didn't get why within the system in the school district were so many kids coming out of jail. So, that led me to, I can tell stories all day, but there was a particular student named John, 8th grade student, and I ended up having to go to his house because I couldn't get a hold of his parents. And it shocked me when we realized that when we opened up his front door, you literally could see the dirt in his house because
Wow.
They tore up the floorboards to heat during the winter, heat the wood during the winter. And it led me to realize that, the policies that are connected with this cycle of dependency took families from Chicago to areas of Champaign, where they were set up in a certain way to be able to survive on this cycle of dependency in Chicago. But when they moved to smaller urban settings, it did not allow them the same, sort of comfort zone. And so people were surviving in different ways. And so then I began to realize, well, if I was sleeping on dirt floors in the winter, I may be doing some things as well that might land me in jail. But then I just got to the point realizing, well, is the school district aware of this?
Mm-hmm.
The powers that be, are they aware of the plight of these students? And the answer really was no, at the time. And so I moved to Chicago. I went back into teaching, and I did a documentary with my kids. I taught at Harvard Elementary School, did a documentary with some of my students, understanding the issues around housing policies and job policies. Yes. And all these things that contribute to, what we coin as a school to prison pipeline. But it's a lot more complicated than just simply a school to prison pipeline. There are so many issues that are impacting our students. And, we did this documentary 10, 11, 12 years ago. But it opened my eyes as an educator. I learned things about these students. I learned things about these cities that were outside the classroom that eventually led me to start a business. As I began tracking my kids, I began to realize which ones would drop out, which ones were likely to go to jail. And, you know, I within the system, I realized we need to do something different. We need to create something different than typical alternative schools and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, I started a business. I worked at CYDI, it's Community Youth Development Institute. Mr. Aaron Royster had hired me to do some things that were different. We did things different. You know, we did urban gardening. We did all those things. We helped start businesses. We opened up a store there. Then I was connected to Banner through my friend of mine, Scott Nasser, was working at CPS, and he was over the Banner schools, and he asked if I would, you know, maybe help them out. So I did some reform. Then I became a partner. But then my work just took me to different places. I still work in River Rouge, Michigan. I started doing some reform at just regular public schools. Worked there for 5 years. Worked with Derek Coleman. He's a superintendent there. They've done an incredible job of turning that district around. They've opened up a new school where our Meta 24 program is in now. And then I, you know, worked with some emergency managers throughout the state in other school districts.
How many locations does Meta 24 exist in?
So there's people who are kind of attempting it. And we'll get deeper into what that means. And there's some places that are really doing it. So, you know, Pastor Flager at St. Sabina has brought us in. We started there in August. And so Meta 24 now is at St. Sabina. You know, it's in Austin. The full-fledged program is in Austin, where we started that 3 years ago. And then it's in Detroit as well. Then there's other people that are attempting to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, in a lesser form.
So is the goal to have a Meta 24 location in every major city?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know, what Meta 24 is, when people come, when you look at the website, you're like, oh, they're doing workforce development. They got these incubators. They're helping, you know, disengage students, start businesses. Oh, look, they've opened up a store. They got an online store. But until you really come and see it, you really begin to understand that, you know, what we're doing is we're trying to forge a new type of education. The city is aware of it. The mayor is aware of it. All the local aldermen are aware of it. But there's 60,000 what they now call opportunity youth, aged 16 to 24, that are not in school and not working. There's a greater number of youth that are either doing either one, but their track is not leading them into a direction that's going to change their economic status in their life. So you're talking just an overwhelming number of youth that do not have access to do what they need to do. And so their focus right now is, you know, what do we do with these 60,000? Well, if you kind of break that number down, then you look at the number of seats or places where they can go as far as school or real workforce development. I mean, you know, right now there's a group called Thrive Chicago, and they did some research with University of Chicago, and basically they found out that, you know, of all the, you know, the community-based organizations, there's about 4,200 students or 4,200 opportunity youth maybe of being served somewhere, right? Not really understanding the impact of it, but somewhere. Of the 60,000, 35% of them actually have a high school diploma. And so what that really means is the city does not even have enough space to do meaningful, intentional programs with these opportunity youth. But a lot of places where these opportunity youth are going to school is ineffective. They're coming in largely unemployable, and they're leaving unemployable. We know the statistics are 88% Black youth, same age, 16 to 24, are unemployed in the city.
Right.
You know, only 85% total of Chicago public school students are getting a 4-year degree by the time they're mid-20s. These numbers are overwhelming.
They're staggering, really. They're really staggering, and I wonder, you know, what the answer is. You know, one of the sentiments here at Chicago Speaks is we're always looking for the solutions. How we, you know, so often we'll talk about the pipeline that you've talked about, that so many of us have talked about the pipeline from school to prisons. And, you know, what really is the solutions? We talked on the phone about different schools that are claiming 100% graduation rate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that that's not fantastic. We need our young people to graduate. We need for them to take that next step. But, you know, is it the case that, or is it the case that we've just kind of cut off certain students who didn't make it to graduation and they're no longer enrolled at the school?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you talk to, you know, a lot of the different organizations that run alternative schools, and like I said, we ran, you know, schools for years, you know, we get a lot of these kids that, you know, we're part of these organizations that we have 100% college placement. And even in our own schools, we can place a kid in college. That's not hard. It's not placing a kid in college. Is that kid prepared to stay in college? Is that kid prepared to make it through? I think, you know, people have different, you know, opinions about Noble. Noble does an incredible job of, you know, providing and tracking and, you know, giving the resources to students once they get into college. And, you know, they have a different population that aren't opportunity youth necessarily. And, you know, talking to some of the people that work, you know, on that particular pipeline, it's very, very difficult. And so, you know, when you talk about solutions, you know, part of what Meta 24 is designed is to create a closed loop economic development system within a school context. And so what does that mean? I'm looking at kids and going, okay, I might have you for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, whatever the case may be. When you give that kid a high school diploma, you're saying you're ready for the next phase of your life. It's no mystery. We know we're not preparing a lot of these kids, and mostly because they're aging out, or whatever the case may be. So our concept now is to have a private school for any group of kids that want to come in, you know, basically at their own pace, their own time, right? And the idea is to identify the specific ACT work key skills. A lot of people don't know this, but they're, you know, the solution's already out there. We just have to format it and package it in a way that's attractive to these students.
Okay.
So for example, there's a test, there's ACT work key skills, which is based upon the Department of Labor job projections for the next 10 years. So they say, these are the jobs that are available. These are the skills these kids need to learn. And so if these are the skills the kids need to learn, we need to be spending all of our time helping these kids learn those particular skills. Well, you can't do it in rows and chairs. Meta 24 came in, and, you know, my now ex-partners, but my partners at the time, we said, let's take out the first floor. Let's do hands-on workforce development. So hands-on graphic design, hands-on, you know, fashion and trends, digital sewing machines, vinyl cutters, laser cutters, industrial, everything you can imagine. I said, then let's go get people that know how to use these things and bring them in to teach the kids the particular skills. Well, why are we doing that? Well, we know that most of these disengaged youth are not interested in sitting in rows and chairs and learning about, you know, how to operate a forklift. That's not encouraging. That's not going to engage them. They need hands-on, they need habit building, they need a metacognitive process that says, I learned a skill, it gives me an opportunity to learn something, to make money, or it's a transferable skill for a job. And so
and that's so important. I think, you know, years ago you would hear so much about vocational training, and not only that, there was vocational training, but right after graduation years ago, there was opportunities. Absolutely. I know people, I personally went into banking immediately after high school, and that paid for me to go to college. And the Ford Motor Plan and different plants that people knew that they were going to get a job, you know, in certain areas, you know, in and around the Chicagoland area. And some of those plants aren't around anymore. And so I love what you're doing in the sense of taking a look at what opportunities are coming our way. You know, is it digital marketing? I mean, that's the wave of the future. I thought of marketing in a traditional sense in so many aspects, but I realized that I was a bit of a dinosaur and I had to come up to speed myself on digital marketing. And now it's actually an area in college that you can receive a 4-year degree in. And so having these types of skills is going to, you know, really propel these young people. And not only that, I love the fact that there's this entrepreneurial effort, this entrepreneurial spirit, because sometimes you have to make your own job.
Right. You have to create your own. And so workforce development, there's root.cause. I mean, there's 5 publications that said the answer, 17% of the population in the country are disengaged, right? Disengaged students that turn into disengaged adults. It's a 4.75 trillion social cost, right? And they all know that the only solution is complex, multi-level workforce development. And you just said it. The workforce development has to be not just here's a set of worksheets and then a job placement. No, it has to be job creation. It has to take them through from idea to teaching the whole process of business, to prototyping, to marketing, the whole aspect of it. And, with Meta 24, a student can come in and do the full process of manufacturing, business idea, web development, prototype. They make, hundreds of products. And then what was very important in changing the narrative about these students, I think this is something that we need to talk about as a city. I think there's a lot of good-hearted people that want to do and want to pour money into programs, but I don't think the narrative has changed as far as what they think these kids can do. And so these kids started their own store. And so you talk about the disengaged population started their own brick and mortar store on Chicago Avenue. It's called Mzuzi, which means innovate in Swahili. They have their own online store. We have, Cortez is one of the examples. He just recently broke $1,000 in sales in his candles. And I think one thing that's very important with this is, we first opened the store, everybody's like, why don't you just open up a store downtown? And I said, no. I said, people have to see in their neighborhood.
That's right. The progress. What's actually happening.
What's good in the hood. They got to see what's good in the hood. Wait a minute. Who made this stuff? And when people come in, they're blown away. They go, this store's too nice. Then they go, wait, who made this stuff? High school kids in Chicago, in this neighborhood? They're like, wow, this is really good. So now the narrative has changed. And the expectation is, okay, see what they can do.
Yeah.
They can do what anybody else can do. They just have to have access.
Yes.
And so.
And then taking that access a little bit further, I remember when I was pulling together my business, and back then I had excellent credit. Not to say that it's horrible now, but it was excellent back then. And, learned how to create business plans probably in my early 20s. And was really excited walking to the bank. I didn't have any debt, thinking, okay, I'm going to get a loan. It never happened.
Right.
And so I really had to work, save my own money, and then start my business. And so I've got a couple of questions. Once these young people, okay, they've been trained, they're learning how to be entrepreneurs. How are they getting that funding to move forward? And then the other question that I have is, even though, we definitely want to see them move into their own businesses or move into areas of opportunity where there's different vocational positions that are available for this, to get that high school diploma. Even though I know you mentioned, well, you want to train from a non-traditional sense, and you don't always have to be sitting down in rows and chairs, but getting that high school diploma is so very important. And I remember going my first year of college, I could always test well, but once I got into class, I really had that deer in the headlight look, but I made it into some advanced class. But then I thought, well, I just test well. I just don't know what I'm doing. And so I remember having the best professor ever who pulled me aside because I wasn't doing, very well in this math course. And he said, how old were you when you stopped paying attention? I said, somewhere around sophomore year in high school. And this gentleman was kind enough to take me all the way back to sophomore year in high school and bring me up to college level math. And so I don't know that that's happening for our youth right now. I think some of them are so intimidated by certain courses. They think, oh, I don't test well. And they're afraid to move beyond a certain point because school seems intimidating for that reason alone. So what is your answer to that?
So let's start first with the high school diploma. diploma is not that important. A prepared, meaningful high school diploma is important.
Yes.
So we handing out high school diplomas left and right,
Gotcha.
right? That doesn't, that's part of our issue. There's too many students that have a high school diploma in Chicago, and Chicago Public Schools is doing their diligence to make sure these, kids have this 1+ rating and all this sort of stuff earlier, so that they have more success in the future. And, I hope that continues to go well. My particular concern are kids that are, by the time they get to high school, there's missing links, right?
Yeah.
There's whatever the case may be. So if I have a student that comes to me that's 17 years old, and they go, a lot of our kids are like, I just want my diploma. You'll give it to me for less credits? I'll take it. I can get 10, 11 credits a year. Great. And that was part of our issue. We, as a school, as an ALOP school, were giving out 10, 11 credits a year. These kids didn't do 10, 11 credits worth of work. And that's why I got rid of my contract with CPS, why I didn't want to do it anymore. I just don't believe in that process. We're giving these kids, whatever. So, but our curriculum, it actually aligns. So they're just not coming in and just getting, just doing businesses. Our curriculum aligns to the core, the ACT work keys, ACT college readiness. It aligns to all of these things. I mean, we have a full, paper, regular, sort of curriculum. There's online assessments, all these sort of things that, we're able to go back and say, no, you need to really work on boom, 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 right? But even to your point, I think you said something very important. When they graduate, I want them to go, okay, now we're ready to start.
Correct.
Get your high school diploma. Okay, great. Because they're caught up, and Cortez can even tell you, like, he's going to graduate soon, right? But because he's connected to his business and to the bigger picture, he's not going to stop. And we're going to continue to work on these things because he wants to be a lawyer, right? He wants to go into law school. So right now he's in a course, English humanities course, where it's at a graduate level, and so we're trying to prepare him, right? We're trying to prepare him with, we're reading Wretched of the Earth, The Native Son, and blah, 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 and we're doing all these different things. We're reading these things at a high level because he has to grow in his vocabulary. He has to grow in his reading. He has to grow in these things if he's going to be able to get a major in pre-law and do what he has to do. So, we're going to make sure that, okay, here's your diploma. Let's celebrate. Let's go to TGI. Okay, now let's get back to work.
Correct.
Right? Let's get back to work and do what we have to do. And I think that's a big, an important part of what we need to do in Chicago. We have to build something where students are hooked. See, the thing is, they're not hooked. There are kids that come to us from, they haven't been in school since 6th grade because they got kicked out. There's no real due process. They never graduate 8th grade. They come back at 17 years old. They haven't been in school since 6th grade.
Yeah.
That's not one or two students. That's a ton of students.
Correct.
And we have kids that come at 17. They get a ton of credits. It looks on their transcript they've passed Algebra 2, but they can't add a fraction.
Right.
And so then you go, they're like, give me my diploma. Let me just keep it moving, whatever. So there's a bunch of mixed messages, that the education world has sent them, right? That the larger powers that be that have sent them. But the reality is tens of thousands are not in school. They're not prepared to go to work. We haven't built the system for them to go, come, let us hook you, let us train you, let us continue to train you. Along the way, here are these certifications, diplomas, but we're going to continue to train you. And the goal is for it to be really a closed loop. Like our goal at the center, where Meta 24 is, the Center for Alternative Studies, is to then eventually let's do some graduate level work within that building. We can now actually offer diploma from ages 14 through any age, right?
Fantastic.
But why is that important? Well, it's important because I don't really care if you don't finish by the time you're 18, 19, 20, 21. If I need to put you to work and study how you're working, that's vital, because what we're not focusing on are the 24 to 35-year-olds that have never had a job. And if you don't work early, the likelihood of you not working for the next 10 years, that's a problem.
Correct. And I think so many young people, it's just like you said, once you've made it, you've gone to a certain point of not reaching your fullest potential, you don't really see potential anymore.
Right.
And so I'm so happy. I know that you're here. I'd love to hear about your experience with Meta 24. What you're excited about. Do you feel some of the this reality that you have an opportunity for the future?
So I feel the reality that we get, what I've gotten with Meta 24. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I'm 17 years of age. I went to Marshall High School when I just got out of 8th grade. Marshall really wasn't my fit. I'm not the type, stand in a corner and like gang bang and like fight all the time and stuff like that. So a better school for me was Banner. So I came into Banner thinking that I was gonna go do paperwork as normal. And that's what I was actually told. And to Flavian, he told me he's gonna take me to a new school. And when he told me a new school, I'm thinking I got kicked out. I'm like, oh, what did I do? And so I went to the new school.
You did something right.
And so I went to the new school, which was Meta 24, and it was like hands-on everything. And it gave me the opportunity to learn more and get more knowledge from being hands-on than sitting in front of a teacher just listening. Something's going in one ear and out the other. I can't just like touch something and just like the feel goes away. It's like I'm actually doing something that I want to do, and I'm being able to like get experience that I wasn't able to get from Marshall. Marshall wasn't offering me, become your own entrepreneur, learn business terms, learn business vocabulary, learn business proposals. They wasn't offering me any of that. And so when I came to Meta 24, it was like, okay, it was a big inspiration to see that I'm able to actually do something I want to do without being penalized for it, or without someone saying that that's not how you do it. They let us be independent on our own, and we mess up, it's on us, and we have an opportunity to fix it, again, without being penalized for doing something wrong that we wasn't supposed to do. And it was like, it was amazing. So like now I'm 17 again. It's like I broke even more than once. I've reinvested into my company. I've had my company for a year. I just recently broke $1,000 in sales.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's outstanding.
And so I never pictured myself being an entrepreneur at 17. I actually never pictured myself being an entrepreneur at all. It's like I actually thought all the stuff was like made up, like, oh, no one comes up with their own business. No one actually sits down and does the work. But like now I actually sit and do the work, and it's like I do web development, and it's like now I have more knowledge than someone who's older than me could have. Like I can have a conversation with the adult and they might not know anything that I'm saying. I've had a couple conversations with adults and they were like,
that's actually happened.
And like I've had a couple of conversations. They were like, oh really? Like I never knew that. Like you taught me something. So it's like I learned something new every day in the Meta program, and it gives me just the opportunity to be me and to be like express myself and being able to do something that is accountable and that's always going to be here as long as I'm going to make it here. So like I come every day. I don't mind coming. I come early. I stay late. And I work a job also, and like some days I put my job to the side for my own business because I want to like make my business more appropriate, and I want to make it more seen by others, and I want to make it like out. And so with me breaking $1,000 in sales, I was like, okay, that's one big accomplishment. I want to know what's the next one. And it was like me being able to do that was a big step for me because I never pictured myself breaking $1,000 off. That's $1,000. I'll never get to that trademark. Like I actually thought I wasn't even gonna never make it to 500. Like that's how at first I just wanted out. I got out for a while. I'm like, I just want out. I don't like it. It's too tough. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna pass it. But then that's when Dr. Prince Nathan was like, hey, you can do it. Come back down and do it. So I came back down. I did it, and now I love it. And now that's what I do every day. Even on the weekends, I still do it. And so I put a lot of my time into my business, and me being able to do this is a big step. Like, not saying that I was a bad kid in school, but in grammar school, my grades wasn't always good. I used to always want to be like a class clown, laugh and do other things when other people pass, and like, oh, well, I didn't pass this assignment because I did this. And like now I look back at the Banner years, and as I've been with like Meta 24, I look at my grades. Then I'm like, I made a big change, and it's like because I actually like doing what I do.
And I think that's key. What you're saying, you made a big change. You made the decision to make the change, but the motivating factor for making that change was being able to see the reality that you can achieve something. And I think Dr. Prince helped you to be able to envision that reality that I can achieve, I can be more than what I
Yes.
currently am, and I can grow and have, and we want to be progressive in society. And so you bought into this. You made the choice, because it really boils down to our choices.
So I made
You made that choice. Your peers, what will make them make similar choices?
Well, my peers should see me. I mean, like my peers should be able to see me and like, okay, well, Cortez was doing this at one point. Now he's doing something else productive and not non-productive. He's actually making something of himself without doing something. Like, I'm doing something that I like, so my peers should be able to see that what I'm doing is a big accomplishment to them and to me also. So they should be able to see that since he made a change, anyone can do it.
Absolutely.
I mean, his grades wasn't always good in school. No one's grades gonna always be perfect in school. People fall off. And, you know, I fell off. I got back on track. So they should be able to see he's doing the right thing. Why don't I be able to do the right thing? And like, I talk to some of my peers now that goes to my old grammar school. Like, I saw a couple of them last night, and I was telling them about the program. And they was like, really? And though, like, they was like ecstatic that, oh wait, you're doing this. Like, a couple of my grammar school friends didn't even know I was like running a candle company. To like, we all met up last night, and I told them that, and they was like, man, that is a big step to be actually doing something without being penalized for it. Because had I still been at Marshall, I would have met Dr. Flavian or either like his ex-partners that actually pushed me into doing this because they knew I had the potential to do it. They knew I can do it, but I figured, nah, I can't do it. But my peers should be able to see that if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Absolutely.
And that you just need a motivation. Someone who's willing to tell you, like, you can do this, instead of someone downing you. You want somebody to uplift you. And so, uplifting, like, now I feel like, well, no one can down talk me anymore. It's like,
That's right.
I can do what I want. I can do it as long as I put my mind to it, as long as I have motivation behind me.
And can I just even talk about the mechanism? So, you know, we have dozens of CEOs like Cortez, right? We have dozens of kids that have started their own business, have placed their products in the store. And it goes to one of your earlier questions. A lot of them, you know, that have graduated, have their business, now they're working, and we're watching them work for 6 months, right? They're, you know, going to college, doing these sort of things. And I'm cautious about, I'm a monitor. I'm a big monitor. I've been tracking and monitoring kids that I've worked with since, you know, for 10, 11 years. I still track what they're doing. So, you know, one of the things that's interesting is, you know, like you said before, the goal is to give them transferable skills. If they turn into a very successful entrepreneur, great. If they, you know, go on to do this in something in college, great. If they're working and stable, great. Like, those are the things we want to see. But what's cool also is that, you know, the mechanism of the economic development, I don't want to lose sight of this, because I want people to understand this is more than just, oh, we're helping kids start businesses. The wealth disparity, as we know, between there's the haves
and the have-nots.
Well, there's the trying to get, and there's the ain't never gonna have it, right?
That's
because
right.
you got there's just the wealth gap. It's not just, oh, there's rich and poor, and how do we create a bridge? No, you need capital to get from here to here.
Absolutely.
And like you said in your story of going to the bank, there is no capital. You know, Pastor Flager says it all the time. He's like, man, we just, every time we go downtown, this huge new buildings are going up, but we don't even have the seats and the seats to actually put somebody into. And we don't have the human capital to sit around. So people ask me all the time, what do you need? I'm like, well, shoot, we need, you know, we want to do this privately so we can do what we got to do. I said, but I should be getting somebody from, you know, from University of Chicago that's an economist, right? That's what we need. We need those types of intellectual people, because at the end of the day, I am an entrepreneur, but I'm an educator.
Yes.
And I think this is very important. The better Cortez does at selling his things, right? He's able to then go to people in the neighborhood, more disengaged opportunity youth that aren't doing anything, and says, well, what are you doing? Well, how much you making selling drugs in the corner? $30 a week? He gets to the point where, and he hired his first person in the neighborhood, and, well, I can get you more than that.
Absolutely.
Opportunity. That's right. I can get you more than that. But see, then the whole thing is they come in, they go, who, me? Make candles, soaps, blocks, we make toys, we make everything. We make clothes, we make, you name it, we make it. well, I can get you to make more than that. So then they come in and they look around, they go, wait, what type of place is this? Then they get hooked. And so then they bring in this person and this person. And so then they get hooked. And the thing is they're in school and they don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And, we take them through the curriculum, we take them through whatever. This, if we, it's the old field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. We haven't built something. We obviously haven't built something if 60,000 people are sitting at home not doing what they got to do.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that you're doing, and you're doing well, and that we need to continue to do, is to meet their needs. You get people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I find this in life every day. When I meet your need, if I can meet your need, if you don't have shelter, if you don't have food, if you provide resources, if you can say to someone on the street corner, hey, I can match what you're making selling drugs. If you have opportunity and meet their needs, then their eyes open up. Then they think, okay, maybe I can do something else. But when you feel stifled and feel like there isn't any opportunity, you can stay stagnant. Not only that, I think, I'm sure some of Chicago has heard about 1871, and I'm applaud their concept. And I think there's a lot of, venture capitalists who are coming in there and they're helping to make people's dreams come true. But they're getting a piece of that pie for doing that. One of the things that the tenets that I believe is working with what you've pulled together is bringing in people who also have a vision. And what I want to do today, Chicago, is to find out, what are your strengths? You mentioned having someone, possibly an economist from University of Chicago, who can come in and help in this regard. With 1871, I noticed they'll have Ernst & Young there to handle anything that's got to do with accounting. They'll have the top of the line person or company that handles advertising. And it's to build that company, but we need for different organizations, companies like that, to invest into your system as well.
Absolutely.
Because right now the money's going towards the prisons. They've given up. I think, and when I say they, the infamous they, it's the powers that be that are holding that money at bay that would help an entrepreneur. But for those who would participate, how can they?
So let me speak on that just for a second. So the Meta 24 in Austin is in the 37th ward under the best alderman in the world, Emma Mitz. Just give her a shout out. She's been very, very supportive. She is a servant leader in the highest regard. I just absolutely love her. But so she came to me and she said, she goes, we have a problem with the youth, right? We have a problem with, either youth are getting slapped on the wrists too often, and then they, throw the book at them when they get older, and, or there's just not enough. And so she came to me and she said, let's talk to the judges and say, let's make Meta 24 an alternative to incarceration. So instead of waiting until we criminalize them by giving them 14 slaps in the wrist, and we used to work with Heartland Alliance and a couple of the programs, under banner, where we were getting kids and they were coming to us doing whatever we got to do. This is important. Let's be a little proactive with these youth, right? Yes. Because once again, if we know $4.75 trillion, that's what it costs, social costs. It's a lot cheaper, right, to build up these youth and to fix a broken man that you've given so many felonies to that they can't do anything. So let's be proactive with that. So then what's happening is you see companies are coming in. I like to lift up the president of Electric Conduit Construction, Tim Flieger. He came into the alderman's office and he was like, how do we help? He's got an office way out in the suburbs, but he works in Chicago. And he was like, well, I would love to employ some students. And so I said, well, what we need to do is they need to be with us for a little bit, because they need to get their feet wet. And, they got to get exposed to things, they got terminology. I said, but I think we do a really good job of now they go, oh, their self-determination is improved. They go, I do have permission to dream and to work, and I do belong. And so once they get to us, so he came in and, he gave a pretty good charitable donation, and he gave us a SUV because he's like, I would like these kids to be able to drive to the site. And so he's working with the local
Fantastic.
9 to hire some of our students. And so this is going to change their life. This is have an opportunity to get into the local 9 and get trained and get paid to get training to do some of this electrical work. We have students that are ready for that.
That's wonderful.
We know they can pass their CDL permit. Then they get trained. They do what they got to do. And so people like Tim, and their company. There are, other companies that are coming in. We met with. AT&T came in the building the other day. They're coming back this week. We're starting to get. Some partners with that. I also have to lift up Jim Reynolds from Loop Capital and Get in Chicago. Dr. Crystal Jackson is a huge proponent, of what we're doing. And they gave us some funding to buy some of the consumables and
Fantastic.
Some of the stuff for the Meta 24 students. And they really believe and know that this level of innovation is where we are. And so, yes, 1871 is awesome. Like, if you just think of something like 1871 where entrepreneurs and investors are able to come in and get it. And these people have a lot more capital
Absolutely.
and knowledge and education than our kids do. We need the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kids.
I want to thank you both. Dr.
Thank
Prince
you.
Cortez, I thank you so much for coming on to the show today. We're going to talk about more opportunities going forward. We're going to talk about getting some of these officials elected. We've got a lot of minority judges who are up for re-election. We want to make sure they get through the door and maybe take on some of these policies and incentives that you brought up. Also, Chicago, before we go, I want to let you know that, under the guise or the sentiment of stay woke, I'm sure you've heard about the Affordable Care Act. There's enrollment that will start in November. We want to get the word out on all of the intellectual radio shows, letting them know we're not going to let this die. We're going to make sure that the Affordable Care Act lives on. Have a great Sunday. Thanks for tuning in. Chicago Speaks with Lori Elise.
Say why you do this to me. I'm growing older and realizing what life is doing. I came from the dirt, I'm straight off the boat. A new style, some new chains so I can boast. A new whip to make sure I move right. Mama, I made it. I swear that your boy gon' be tight. And we might face some problems growing up where I'm from. 216, get right and say, yo, who wants this?